the lava flow, after it gets cooled, it forms a rocky igneous substrate. Okay, that substrate is made up of igneous rocks and some kind of metamorphic rocks as well. After primary succession has occurred, that is, a pioneer community has established its foothold into a newly formed landmass or a previously uninhabited landmass, the pioneer communities die off and their bodies are gradually broken down by bacterial decomposition into humus and soil. Next, we have the reed swamp stage. This stage is dominated by bryophytes, and they occur in shallow area of the water, the littoral zone, and the reed swamp stage contains both rooted and unrooted bryophytes. Welcome back to btosacademy. In the previous class, we discussed about the ecological pyramids, the pyramid of number, the pyramid of energy, the pyramid of biomass, food chain, food web, the Lindemann's law of 10% energy transfer in each trophic level. Today, we will look into the ecological succession and its various types and stages. Ecological succession means that an ecological community develops gradually over the course of time according to the various environmental pressure it encounters. In a particular piece of land or in a water body, from the start, there were no big trees or big plants or flowering plants or large animals. They were not present from the beginning. Life in every geographical realm starts from basic primitive life forms, and those life forms which alter the environment, which we call it as terraforming, alters the environment, builds up soil, modifies the soil, changes the hydrological parameters, making it more suitable to sustain life. These organisms which do the hard work are known as the pioneer species, and from the pioneer species or the pioneer communities or the pioneer stage, gradually newer communities take over and they push the previous communities, the pioneer communities, to the fringes. Okay, they outcompete the pioneer communities, and ultimately what happens? Each stage progresses into gradually more evolved, more developed, more complex organisms until a community reaches its climax. That is, it is occupied by those species, by those individuals who are most evolved. Beyond them, there is no other species in the community who is more evolved than them. They form the climax communities. Climax communities are not succeeded by any other communities. Okay, so that is the end of the ecological succession cycle. So there are two types of ecological successions. First is the primary succession and the secondary succession. Primary succession is definitely followed by the secondary succession. So let us look into the primary succession. Primary succession occurs in an area which has been previously uninhabited by any kind of life form. Okay, a totally barren, a totally desolate, a totally lifeless terrain, that kind of area paves the way for the primary succession to occur. Okay, so the area is bare from the beginning. For example, cooled lava. After a volcanic eruption, what happens? The lava flows down the soil and gradually into the ocean. So the lava flow, after it gets cooled, it forms a rocky igneous substrate. Okay, that substrate is made up of igneous rocks and some kind of metamorphic rocks as well. So those rocks serve as the ground level or the base for primary succession to occur. Soil is absent. and since there is no soil, humus is also absent. Soil needs to be formed by rocks through a process known as weathering. Who does the process of weathering? Bacteria, lichens, moss, ferns, fungi, and some algae as well. When we had studied about the 5 kingdom classification, we came to know that algae, certain kind of bryophytes, okay, certain kinds of fungi, they break down soil in a process known as weathering, releasing its nutrients, making it soft and brittle, and the rocks are transformed into soil. Okay, they break down soil, releasing its, they break down rocks. Releasing its nutrients, then converting it into soil and building up of organic material by the dead bodies and the decomposition of the dead bodies of those pioneer species by bacterial decomposition. Okay, so soil is gradually formed by the weathering of rocks by the pioneer communities, namely the bryophytes, the algae, the fungi, etc. Okay, and biomass or humus is gradually built up into the soil by the microbial decomposition of the dead bodies of the pioneer species. Since this land was previously uninhabited, no reproductive structures of previous communities are present. Okay, no reproductive structures of previous communities are present. Reproductive structure means it can be a thallus of an algae or a bryophyte. Okay, it can be a spore of any pteridophyte or any kind of fungi. So, no such structures are present in the substrate of primary succession. After primary succession or the pioneer community has been established, secondary succession occurs. Secondary succession occurs in what kind of areas? See, a land has been previously inhabited, okay, by different kind of organisms, and due to some reason that land has been devoid of life due to some disease, some natural calamities, or simply all the vegetation had been cut off. For example, like in the abundant farmlands or agricultural fields, they form the area of secondary succession. Another kind of area also forms the base of secondary succession, that is, after primary succession has occurred, that is, a pioneer community has established its foothold into a newly formed landmass or a previously uninhabited landmass. The pioneer communities die off and their bodies are gradually broken down by bacterial decomposition into humus and soil. That soil is ready to host new kind of organisms. Some birds may drop some seeds, wind may carry some seeds or pollens, okay, water may carry some fruits from which a seed may germinate, and such areas in which the soil has already been prepared by the pioneer communities, from those areas also secondary succession can occur. So, soil and humus is already present in case of secondary succession. Succession stages come one after the another much faster than in the primary succession, and climax community is established rather quickly as compared to the primary succession, and reproductive structures of previous communities are present. A plant body may be present. Some plant with a flower may also be present, in which a pollen from another area may be transferred. Okay, root system of different plants may be present, which may again grow vegetatively. So, reproductive structures of previous communities are present in case of secondary succession. Now, secondary succession is of two types. One that occurs in the water, known as the hydrarch or hydrosphere, and one which occurs on land, that is the xerosphere or the xerarch. Let us look into the hydrarch, because life, as you all know, first began in water. So, hydrarch. in a water body where the water or the hydrological parameters, okay, the benthic zone, that is the lowest level of the water where the soil is present in the water body, okay, the lower level of the water has already been modified and made suitable to sustain life and to harbor the stages of succession by the pioneer communities, or it has been previously occupied by some other climax communities. In such a water body, hydra can be established or can be observed. Starts with the phytoplankton stage. Okay, at this stage the water body only contains phytoplanktons, and these are the pioneer communities or the pioneer stage. Next, after the hydrological parameters have been modified further, rooted submerged plants occur, known as the rooted submerged state, and the water body now contains phytoplanktons and rooted submerged plants. Next, the rooted submerged plants are gradually taken over by the rooted floating plants, such as lotus, water lilies, etc. They float on the surface but are rooted. Next, these communities are again taken over by the free floating plants. Okay, the free floating plants that are not attached to any substrate. They are not attached to the soil in the water bodies. They are just free floating. They are just free floating. Okay. Next, we have the reed swamp stage. This stage is dominated by bryophytes, and they occur in shallow area of the water, the littoral zone, and the reed swamp stage contains both rooted and unrooted bryophytes. The rooted bryophytes are more localized near the shore, where they gradually start to colonize the land, and it is followed by the marsh or sage meadow stage, where the pteridophytes occur and some bryophytes are also present, but mainly the pteridophytes occur, and they occur near the banks of the water body or at the banks of the water body, the sage meadow or the marsh stage. Okay. Next, as the community progresses towards the land near the water body, it is dominated by the gymnosperms, the woodland stage, and finally we have the climax stage, which is dominated by the climax forest stage, made up of both angiosperms and gymnosperms, both monocots and dicots, and they replace the woodland stage. However, the woodland stage is also present, and when the climax is reached, the phytoplankton, root submerged, all these stages for all these communities are present, but in small numbers. The most diverse and the most populated is the climax forest stage, which dominates the entire community and the ecosystem. Okay. Now we have the xerarch that occurs in dry land, in rocky soil, in dry desert like areas, in xerophytic areas where water is very low in amount, or very less water is present. So at first, the pioneers are the crustose lichens. They actually break down those rocks, they weather the rocks and convert them into soil, releasing the nutrients, making it fit for the next stages of communities or the next succession stages to occur. Next, we have the foliose lichen stage, and they form the humus of the soil. Next, we have the moss stage. Next, we have the herbs. Herbs are again replaced by the shrubs. Shrubs are again replaced by the forests. Okay, shrubs and forests, they are woody plants. Herbs are non-woody plants, and the forests are the climax in the xerarch stage. So this is all that we need to know about the ecological succession.